Hi there. My name is Peter Lewis. I'm the podcast host of LTC Heroes, and today I'm joined by Olivia Jenkins to talk about short stories from the front line of long-term care. Olivia, you and I chatted last week, and I know you're passionate about long-term care, but not everyone knows who you are. Tell me, where's home for you? What organization do you work at? And what's your job role?
Okay. So I actually live in Boone, North Carolina, but I serve as a regional director of clinical services for Ridge Care. Our parent home company is in Kernersville, North Carolina, but I serve from West Virginia all the way to Kernersville. So there's 5 assisted livings that I oversee for their clinical insight.
Wonderful. And how long have you been in long-term care? You look really young, so I don't want to say you've been here for
Oh,
10 years. You might have graduated from college last year.
I'm celebrating a big birthday soon. I have been in long-term care per se as a employee for 6 years. I did teach nursing at Appalachian State University, and some of the clinicals that I taught was in long-term care, and I taught CNA classes at the local high school. So altogether, I would say about 12 years that I have been involved with long-term care in some form of being a nurse.
So you went from academia to working on the front line. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is.
And so what was that transition like? Because there's a lot of people would say long-term care is hard, and a lot
Mhm.
of people would move from long-term care over to academia probably if they could. Why did you do the opposite, and what was special about moving getting in the office and working in a long-term care organization?
So I wanted to get back into hands-on nursing. I love academics. I love teaching. So when I started kind of looking for something different, I was looking something that would component of clinical skills and component the education piece. Long-term care is where I found that at in assisted living, because when you're a nurse in that community, you're also educating the team member. So that really got to me to feel that passion of wanting my use my education background and also get to be hands-on nursing. When I was in the academics, I kind of got bored in the classroom with talking about nursing every day. I'm not going to say I would never maybe go back when I was older, wanting to slow down, quit, running that race, chasing that tail that you're never going to catch. But I just wanted to get back into hands-on and actually be at the bedside. I was at the bedside in clinicals, but it wasn't the same. And so when I was researching different careers out there, long-term care, a lot of those nurse positions I kept seeing were saying you have to be an educator to the staff education over and over. And I was like, this is great because it's hands-on clinical at the bedside. And then there's also a teaching component that I absolutely love and went to graduate school for.
And was there a learning curve when you went from theory into practice?
Oh yeah, big time. So, applying all that I guess per se that you get and applying it to the real world, there was a huge learning curve getting back into that work sector. Working as a team again. You work as a team at the teacher level, but not per se as like care planning and making the best, decisions, looking big picture. That was the biggest probably learning curve that I had to. So learning that, you've got this one incident, you've got this one scenario, how is it going to affect everybody? Because a lot of times in the academic world, you were looking at a case study and you were looking just at that one individual that was involved in that case study. For the students, making your thinking maps and all of that. So definitely looking big picture probably was the biggest curve. I feel like now that's probably one of my strongest assets because I focused so hard on that when I started because it was different. It was no longer just the simple little case studies we were looking at and making a care plan for the assignment.
I know that one of your big projects or challenges from our previous conversation was you came into an organization that wasn't policy driven and you had to
Mhm.
make it one. You had the support from your superiors, but you also had to make sure that you had kind of a mentality change. Can you walk me through that process? What was the
Mhm.
hardest part? Did you come from a policy background? Did you learn? How did you become skilled up in that area?
Mhm. So policies driven was definitely how I was focused. I'm primarily coming from the academic world, and even going to hospital to hospital to hospitals with students. That was the first thing that we would review is the policies, because if you're not practicing under that policy correctly, then you're not practicing, you're not going to be held by their malpractice insurance. So, taking students from community to community or hospital to hospital, that was the one thing that we were focused on. So when I came to long-term care, that's not all long-term care, special assisted living, because we're not skilled in assisted living, is not policy driven. So when I went to the regional role, that was our first task as a regional team, was to pretty much create all the policies for the entire company. They had some policies that they had put into play throughout the years, but it wasn't really necessarily what drove the industry, what drove the business. So we had to create that together as a team and drive that business, sell that to our employees, get them on board, teach the policies, go back and follow up on the policies, making sure that was definitely how they were practicing in the care homes that we oversee. Pretty much on average, each of us have 5 to 6 homes each. And so to take all of that whole binder, that whole thing that we had worked on for over a year to bring out, and that was probably one of the best days ever. We actually got to make that go live because it was long, tedious process, but it was done. We got it done. We had great resources. We had overwhelming support from the company. They gave us time to work on that to make sure it went out right, the first time, not having to backtrack. So that was huge. That was a huge step in my career. That's something I can always look back on. You always have those moments where you feel like, man, that was a great day, or, you grew professionally. That was definitely one during that time as the regional team worked together. There's 3 nurses that came together on that I felt like was definitely a growth in my career. Because when you take in your task is to write every single policy for that company, and that wasn't just clinical policies, like that's a huge step.
I would bet so. What did you learn about yourself in that process?
I am definitely black and white. I am definitely a rule follower. So if it's on paper, it's going to happen. If it's what they tell you to do, that's the way I'm going to do it. So to me, that just even grew that even bigger, that I could finally have something tangible and in black and white to take to the communities. So that, I've always thought that of myself, but it definitely came out in that. And then definitely just getting more in depth of how to write the policies so someone can understand it. And the clinical research that we had to do, because it wasn't just us sitting around a table being like, okay, this is the way we think it should be. I mean, we use evidence-based practice with our policy. So we grew in both lit review. We grew, I feel like as a company too, a more clinically focused assisted living company, which you don't always see that in other companies. So the fact that we were able to bring all this knowledge in from 3 wonderful nurses, build it up into this policy, and then roll it out to the communities. At the end of the day, those communities are stronger in the clinical realm than they were before. And they're probably stronger than a lot of other ALF communities, because not all of those policy driven. And I can 100% say when we get those calls at 10:30 at night, for situations, we were back to those policies. Every single regional leadership person does, even the community now, which I think is just such a beautiful thing. They'll call and be like, I was reading this policy and I have this question, or I pulled this policy for this situation. Is that right? It's now they are a policy driven focused person. So even at the end of the day, if they don't stay with our company, if whatever healthcare company they go to next, they're going to have that enriched background where other industries, hospitals per se, are policy driven. They're going to have that framework to help build them up where they go next, wherever leadership role that they land.
I remember one of the quotes or 2 of the quotes that you mentioned when we chatted last week in preparation for this. You said that one of the things you were passionate about was empowering others, and you used a specific phrase, which was you need to own your own growth. Can you elaborate what that means to you?
Yes. So twofold. To answer the first question about empowering others, I'm a teacher at heart. So I like to nurture people and I like to bring people up. True leaders don't create followers. They create other leaders. So I hope that anybody that I encounter with, I work a lot with CNA med techs. And so they give medications, and we have, as the nurses, we are the ones that train them to work like that. They don't know what we know as nurses because they didn't go to school to be a nurse. They're a CNA med tech, but they can learn that trade and they can do it very well once they have the proper training. So one thing I always tell you, got to own your own growth. I can only teach you so much in this class that I'm given with you. In North Carolina, it's our class. So they have 16 hours with me, that all I can give to them. But I like to go back and follow up. And I love it when they actually do research on their own too, that growth. You have to, want to build yourself. You have to want to be the next level up. And I always try to empower people to think like that. Everybody thinks like that. Some people think they get in a job and they're going to be in that 30 years. It's like, no, just because, and I'll tell that at day one on interview, when I interview people, I say the best thing about this company is whatever job you're interviewing for today is not always going to be the job you're doing, 6 months, 2 years from now. There's so much growth with this company. There's other avenues to take. That's the same way that I'm sitting in. I'm not even doing the same role that I was hired for in 2016. So owning that growth, taking the growth or taking your potential to the next level sometimes comes on your own. You may not always have someone out there that's going to spoon feed you or give you a job description that's going to say, I want you to do this. Own your growth to be like, I want to do that. Looking at industries. And the one thing I love to do, I just came back from our state conference in Cala. And a lot when I was networking during the trade shows and stuff, one of the questions I would ask people, well, what do you do in assisted living? What's your job title? Not that I or something, but I just wanted to know what other people do out there, is knowing how other assisted livings are working. What can I bring to the company that I'm working for now to make them, big, better, and great? And owning that growth is something that is internal. You should stop learning and you should never want to stop growing. Some people feel like they get deadlocked in jobs and can't go anywhere. That's not always true. You may not have the title, but you could definitely go somewhere in that job. Or it might be that you're owning your own growth to go to the next job, especially if you're in school. But just taking that initiative upon yourself to give yourself that knowledge to help grow professionally.
I often ask the question, what's your favorite part of the job? But I've started to refine it because I think that this is a little bit more accurate and gets a better response. What's your favorite part of the week? Like if you had to say, this hour in the week really, really fills my heart, makes me smile, fills up my bucket so I can take it home to my family or to my best friend. What does that hour look like?
Mine is definitely at the bedside with resident care. My job isn't always at the bedside with resident care. So when I get to back into resident care, some form or fashion, that is my heart is. I love being at the bedside with the residents. I don't always like doing all the report, the other stuff, but if I can attend an activity, I've done that several times at one of the other assisted livings that's more closer to home that I work with. Did a cooking show with them to demonstrate. I mean, they're not, have kitchens and stuff in their rooms, but they still like that. That may have been something that they really liked. Had a lot sign up for that. So I did that a lot. Even if it's working with dexterity, there's a little bell game that sometimes I just have in my work backpack that I'll take for residents for dexterity, just working with them. It is not an assigned task. It is not even a therapy. It's just one at the bedside. Whatever can put me at the bedside with the residents I really cherish that. That's when I feel like the policy writing is making a difference. Mm-hmm. Sitting behind a desk writing a policy. I love doing that. I like doing that for professional, but I don't want to do that like 24/7 for my job. But when I'm at the bedside and I can see that resident is having good outcomes, or I can see that resident is thriving where the resident is at, or the resident is happy just being there, living there, because that is their home now. That's when all of those tedious tasks that are done behind the desk or in the office come to light, and you can see it firsthand, real life. Because why sit behind the desk and write all that stuff or do that stuff if the resident at the end of the day is not gaining from that? Because that is who pays the paychecks here for everybody that's here, because they're paying to live here. So their happiness is what makes anything in this job amazing. Even the stuff that you have to deal with that you don't want to deal with. It's when a resident's happy is when you're doing the right thing and you're in the right spot.
I tend to think that most of us have a specific moment that we can remember where the senior community has a huge impact on our life. And it might be a really small moment in your life. And I want to kind of hone in on that. What's one specific moment when you've been working in long-term care that a smile changed the way that you perceive your work or the hardship or the lower pay that you get here that you might be able to find in another industry? Can you think of a specific interaction with a resident where you're like, wow, either maybe I thought I was changing their life and they changed my life? Can you take me back to that moment?
Yeah. There's one reason I was thinking in particular. She was a retired nurse. And, I would often go in and chit chat with her about and kind of like what nursing was like when she was there. She was a little harder on the staff, but the reason she was harder on the staff was because she was a nurse. She knew the right way of care, the wrong way of care. So we would often have, chit chats about that. She missed nursing though. She talked about that a lot. How she missed working as a nurse. And there was sometimes I think she still thought she was working as a nurse with us, but she was sweet. And then she taught me a lot too. She always talked about how when she felt, because she was retired, when nursing lost the professionalism of the look of the nurse, when they quit wearing the white starch scrubs, they quit wearing the nursing hats. She felt like that was when nursing was kind of, starting to take a different change. And so hearing that, like, and how the nurses used to present themselves and their mannerisms and stuff like that, I felt like it also helped me. And there's a lot of things I've changed in my practice too, just from hearing her talk on personal end. What sets us apart as what makes us the most trusted profession that's out there. So I felt like I was giving her time because that's all she wanted at the end of the day was time. There would be nothing you could put in a care plan to replace that. There was nothing that we could have done in a policy to replace that. She just wanted time and she wanted someone beside her. But on the flip side, I felt like I was getting so much also in her stories and how nursing has changed over time, sometimes good, sometimes bad, and how we could bring some of that back and to help elevate us even further as nurses to help keep us that most trusted profession. But my talks with her were definitely the best talks ever.
Thanks for sharing that story. I'm wondering what you tell your friends and your family, your social circle of why you work in long-term care. It's been known for the last year and a half that sometimes you can make more money at McDonald's than you can in long-term care. Why are you here, and what do you say to your family?
At the end of the day, it's all still about the residents. And so when I talk to my friends and stuff, because I've had people ask me that too, it's like, you can go do anything. Why are you there? And it's, that's someone's grandparent, that's someone's mom, that's someone's dad that needs to be cared for. And they need people in those roles, just like other healthcare jobs need as well. And I feel like this fits for me. I feel like it works for my life. I feel like I get so much enjoyment out of it. To come to work every day, not every day, coming to work today is doing something that I love and love being here. I love being with the team, the residents, all around. So to me, it's self-fulfillment because loving the job that I'm in. And the residents, they need someone to care for them. I may not be per se doing it one-on-one at the bedside because of the role that I'm in, but I'm starting at the top for educating the team members that are going to be at that bedside and giving the best care that they can, because they also need that comforting as well. It's not only residents we care for, it's our team. Because if our team isn't having a culture that they're feeling supported and empowered, they're not going to stay. So we have to not only care for the residents, but we have to care for the team. If our team is happy, our residents are happy. So we try to, do that trickle fold where really empowering the team around us. So to me, it is the residents too, but it's the team, and it all comes together and supporting both of them. The team gets me my passion for teaching, my education. The residents feel my passion for, at the end of the day, but I am still a nurse and I love bedside nursing. It blends both worlds, that if I was just in education, I wouldn't be getting hands-on patient care. And if I was in patient care, maybe in a hospital, I would not be getting that coaching of the team and educating a team that I love.
What's one thing about long-term care that you didn't know about? If you were going to go back and give younger Olivia advice 12 years ago before you started teaching, or 6 years ago before you started working inside the front door of a long-term care organization, what's one thing that you've learned about it?
Long-term care is different from even when I was in school. You said I was young, but I did graduate nursing school in 2004. And so with that, it's not the same. When I was in nursing school, long-term care, when we did take, was in skilled nursing facilities, nursing homes that were more industrialized looking, tiled floors, no hominess, hospital beds. That was pretty much, I think a lot of people is what thinks as long-term care, but even skilled nursing facilities aren't even looking like that now. Me working in assisted living, I swear I feel like I'm in hotels because they're pretty, they're homey, green floors, the carpeted floors, beautiful fireplaces. Like the ambiance of the long-term care is not like it was when I was in nursing school. And like I said, some SNFs are going more toward that. It's a homey environment. There's nothing for me to have my computer on the couch in the foyer talking to a resident, but I'm working at the same time. That's an amazing work environment, not just always behind a desk. So long-term care has came around and changed so much because it is these residents' homes. And I feel like they have embraced that in the last 10 years, more so have. I know my company alone has done. There's one community I think we've remodeled with decor and everything twice since I've worked with them in 6 years. And I love it. I think that's great. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. I walk in, I'm like, this is prettier than my furniture at home. Like, it's amazing at what they're doing with long-term care. It's like glorified Holiday Inn and hotels, and the residents thrive in that. It's not the industrial looking vinyl floors and, the stereotypical how it probably was 20 years ago. We have one community that I go to. It's in the mountains. I live, I swear when I'm walking out, I feel like I'm walking into a ski slope, but they made it to fit the area that's there. And it's gorgeous. And that is like that long-term care, just because you're at that point in life where you can't be in your personal home that maybe your family in, doesn't mean this can't be home. And so they're making it like home, and it's beautiful. It's just gorgeous.
I'm glad you brought that up because I think that is a misperception that is starting to change. Maybe when I was younger, we said nursing homes are where you go to die. And now when I talk with my parents, I always tell them, I say, hey, I want to come live with you. I want to take care of you. They say, no, we look forward to long-term care. We look forward to nursing homes. And, yesterday I was interviewing an executive director, and he said, his cost per day in food 10 years ago was $4 per resident, and now he's up to $10, and he might be getting up to 11 and 12. So
Wow.
the focus on how the culinary experience, the hospitality experience is changing is, that's the reason my parents don't want me to take care of them.
Yeah, I know. And I always say that when I first started, because again, this company I work for now is the first long-term care I've worked as an employee. I mean, I've been in them with like teaching, but actually work. The first month, maybe the first week I was there, I was like, this is like a cruise ship. There's like activities on the hour, every hour. I mean, if you don't like that one, just hop to the next one. I mean, I was like, man, I need this in my living room. Someone needs to be entertaining me. It's just awesome. Just the interaction and how everybody gets involved. I mean, it's not just like siloed into an activity apartment. I mean, it's the CNAs and the med techs doing the activities. Well, even the nurses jump in and do it. Like, it's just awesome to see that. I mean, I think that's what creates those harmony and the homey atmosphere.
I was 2 days ago, I was talking to a physical therapist who sold his gym. He'd had like a CrossFit gym, and he sold his gym to dedicate himself to teaching movement science only at at long-term care units. And he says
Oh,
that he's
wow.
seen 85-year-olds doing a perfect squat and improving their fall risk, reduction in fall risk tremendously. And he says that it's changed his life more than it's changed theirs. And he goes, at the beginning, when he comes in, he starts these activities, only the women join. And then the men realize that this is really, really cool. And now he has
Yeah.
people are fighting for spots. So that, you mentioning the activities that you want to join them, or you're doing cooking show, it reminds me, think like even the men are fighting over the spots. It's not just a bunch of cool women that are hanging out for the social connection.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's
Olivia,
awesome. Like back in the day, it was like bingo, but now, like there is so much that they do, and the creativity of the activities calendars. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I never would have thought of that.
Olivia, I want to take a moment to thank the sponsor of the show, of Frontline Caregivers, and it's Experience Care. Experience Care is an EHR company that's been around since 1969, and thank them for putting on the podcast and this program. Olivia, I wanted to ask you, because a lot of times I talk to younger audience, people who are thinking about studying to become a certified nurse's aide or to get into long-term care. And I'm interested in what advice you would give to them if they're thinking about long-term care. What is great about it on paper that you would tell them to see? And then what is something that it's a little bit more relative or a little bit more intangible? What would you say to someone younger?
I tell them to do it. I would tell them to do it. And this is why. Because just like the term aging in place with our residents, like a lot of communities are building now independent assisted living memory care where they can age in place, employees can grow in place. So if they're starting out as a CNA med tech or CNA, just say even PCA, starting out as that, they can then build up to a CNA. Then they can build up to a med tech. Then they can build up to an SIC. Then they can build up maybe into the nursing role, or they can go into the activities department head manager role, or they can go into the executive director role. There's so much. And then, maybe even reach out into a regional role and have multiple buildings. There is so much growth potential. And if you're owning your own growth, and that is definitely what you're wanting to see yourself at in 5 or 10 years of growing where you're at, not necessarily job hopping, but just growing in the company that you're with. Long-term care is that. There's always a need somewhere. There's always somewhere that you can grow. Starting at that PCA, CNA level, you get to see it all. You see the good, the bad, the ugly. You can see, how the activities has to partner with clinical on certain things, how dietary has to partner with clinicals and activities, how the budget plays into place. Being at that level, you see it all. You're not siloed in just in one thing of clinical, because you're helping in all of those. And then definitely if you're in college, it's a great time to be in there, because especially if you're going into the business industry, you can watch as your executive director works. You can work as your marketer works. And there's a lot of degrees out there, marketing degrees from, it doesn't even have to be health type of marketing. And you could get into the healthcare side of selling the beds. And there's just so much growth and potential. And there's such a need out there too with long-term care. The age population by 2030 is going up over the age 65. It's only going to create more positions, more growth. And that leadership structure is going to change over time, because the needs of the residents that we're serving are going to change over time. So that's just more potential for growth, more opportunity. I say go for it. Any young person that can get their CNA in high school and start growing at that point with the company, you're going to have so much tenure by the time that you're just 25, 30 years old, that you're going to see a lot of things, learn a lot of things. It is definitely a job that you can grow in place to help build you to where you want to be.
I love it. I've never heard that specific quote, and I love it. And I think it works really well for our industry. Thank you so much, Olivia, for sharing your story today. Your passion for the industry is important with the staffing crisis that is going on. I hope your words inspire others as much as they have me today. And I look forward to meeting your colleague, Cameron, on here. And thanks for connecting on LinkedIn. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.